or as leaders in any capacity, in this case, at work, but outside of that, is to support and grow the whole person, right? Not just like the work and the deliverable part of that person. And even if that means co-building a path for them that ultimately leads them out of the organization, right? And the value and the utility that you give and provide to your team by doing that is irreplaceable, because a paycheck is one thing, but growth in their life and you being a cog or facilitator of that, I mean, that's amazing. And I don't know if many marketing leaders embrace that as part of their responsibility. Why has that become a natural superpower for you? Welcome to another episode of the Growth League podcast. I'm your host, Caleb Clark, and I have the privilege of hanging out with Justin Belford today. He's the Director of Marketing at Auto Canada. He'll tell us a little bit more about what specifically within that he's working on, but he has over 8 years of experience in digital marketing, specifically Google search and display. His campaigns are analytics driven and follow the user's buying behaviors to capture intent along their journey with the brand. His strategies are meant to understand the prospect and provide value in an effective and timely manner. His skills are too many to read out all at once. So it's everything from digital and social media strategy to search, display, campaigns across many different platforms. So thank you very much for spending some time with me, Justin. I'm looking forward to this chat.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah,
great office.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, we're in the office today. Not everyone gets to do that. It's some Zoom calls, but it's always better being in person. So thanks for coming.
You bet.
Actually, Justin's from Edmonton, so he came here just for that. No,
well, kind of, mostly.
That's awesome, man. Outside of that description and outside of maybe even work, who's Justin as a person, as a marketing professional, as a marketing leader? Tell us a little bit about your journey.
That's a good question. I mean, it was a bit of a journey for me to discover marketing. When I originally started thinking about my career when I was in university, I kind of thought about it through the lens of my dad, because he was like a high executive level person. He was a VP at Manulife, actually. Oh. And I just saw his lifestyle, and I saw the way that he carried himself, and I thought, I want to be a VP. I didn't realize that was going to eventually bring me down the road of marketing, and I think there's still an opportunity in that for me in the future. Yeah. But it wasn't until I actually got a job at Yellow Pages selling like print advertising that I realized how much I loved marketing. And from there, Yellow Pages was transitioning to a digital marketplace with yellowpages.ca. So I got a bit of a taste of what does it mean to appear in the top search of Google, and how can that help a business really grow. And so we were selling listings on yellowpages.ca, but oftentimes if you searched for like a home improvement specialist or a contractor, the very first listing on Google would be yellowpages.ca. Right. So we'd get a lot of trickle through traffic from that. And I was hooked, because I would call my clients, and after 3 months of selling them this placement, and they're telling me the phone's ringing and they're getting business, and that was it for me. I'm just going to be a marketer after that, Man,
the early days, the new frontier. Yeah. What an exciting time, Yeah. Similar, I remember when my partner and I started Hook and Ladder. It was day one of Facebook advertising and actually at the time, to be honest, it was we were just running organic campaigns for clients, and then all of a sudden the ad platform popped up, and we're like, oh my goodness, it's had some of those experiences as well. So that hooked you, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
What ultimately intrigued you or attracted you to the current role and company that you're with Auto Canada, and how did your experiences at Flip or even Auto Trader, all the way back to Auto Trader, kind of influence your journey to where you are now?
I guess it kind of goes well with the first question you asked, because like first and foremost, I'm a petrol head. Like I am a car fanatic. And I've been watching, even before YouTube, I used to watch videos online about car reviews, and I was I know every single model and every spec and every trim,
really,
back since like the early 2000s. And So I'm a gearhead through and through, and I love turning wrenches on cars, and I love anything about cars. So as I kind of went further down the marketing path, I had an opportunity to work with Auto Trader, which I realized at the time was more of a pure sales role rather than a marketing role, which is why I eventually didn't end up working there. But I always knew I wanted to work for either an agency that supported automotive dealers or work for an automotive dealer group, and then maybe even work for a manufacturer one day as well. That's kind of all on the horizon. But really, like, how do I get into an automotive group, and which automotive group should I work for? AutoCanada is one of the Pinnacle retailers in Canada, so what better place to start, I guess.
What do you drive now?
Right now I have a Genesis G90.
Yeah.
It's like a big land yacht. I've been kind of more of a compact sedan and sports car kind of guy.
Yeah.
But I had the opportunity to pick up a G90 as a demo, because marketing directors get demos with AutoCanada. I was like, hey, why not?
That's awesome.
Now I love big sedans.
So an interest area for you, a passion area for you, was very heavily influential in where you set your targets in terms of working. I mean, why doesn't everybody do that?
I don't think there's always such a clear path to matching your passion with income generating activity.
Where everyone always says, well, just find what you love and do it, and you'll be, well, that's not a straight line, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate to make a living out of the automotive, but also taking what I learned about helping businesses grow and connecting to consumers in an authentic way, that you combine those two together. And I really feel like I'm in my exact place where I'm supposed to be right now, and it's going really well.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the team around you there. How's the team constructed?
Okay.
Yeah.
We have, so think of AutoCanada not only as an automotive dealer group, but actually we consider ourselves at home office dealer support services.
Okay.
So we have all types of different support structures for finance. We have support structures for fixed operations, so service. We have support structures for marketing, and specifically for marketing, my team, I have 2 graphic designers. I have 2 digital marketing strategists, so media buyers. I have 2 coordinators that just kind of keep everything flowing. I have 2 web developers. I have an inventory analyst who kind of helps me figure out what's the pipeline, how many units do we have in stock, stuff like that. And then finally, which is kind of an interesting component, I have a CRM analyst that helps our stores process those internet leads and manage, the right way to handle those leads.
That's awesome. So you're kind of in a situation right now where it's an intersection of 2 passion areas you talked about. You get obviously the car component, but the infatuation, maybe a strong word, that you had with marketing and digital marketing way back to the Yellow Pages day. Now you have a whole team to execute some of the ideas that you think about, or the creative strategies you put in place. That's got to feel pretty cool.
Yeah, it's different working with, like, as an agency within a retail group.
Right.
Before this job, I was working for an agency. We supported automotive dealers, and I found that the biggest difference now working on the other side of the table is that it's not always the ideas that sell the best in terms of like who you're pitching to,
right,
that actually produce the results. So if I kind of unpack that a little bit, sometimes when you're talking to a dealership and you're selling them an idea, okay, we're going to make a YouTube video and we're going to talk about your lowest payment on Nissan Rogue, and we're going to put that YouTube video on social media as well. And they're like, oh yeah, I love YouTube videos, let's do it. And actually, like, it's probably not going to generate a ton of results for them, but it's sexy and it's kind of cool. Whereas now that I'm on the other side of the table, where we're highly, highly sensitive to what does it cost to sell a vehicle, we tend to stick more to like the bread and butter, low funnel, search, social media, lead ads, stuff like that. And so it's, even though you can get pretty exciting and do some cool creative in there, I find that you're selling yourself a lot less, and you're focusing on the stuff that you know that works.
The fundamentals,
Yeah.
So would you kind of for your, I guess the customers, the clients in theory are the dealerships, right, that you're supporting. So will you sort of offer them a layered cake approach, in that, you know, you get the foundation, the fundamentals done, the thing at bottom funnel that, you know, contributes to the business case. And then if that's working and there's budget available, then you kind of sprinkle in some of the sexier things. Is that?
Yeah. Like when we're talking about budget allocation, I think there's always a percentage that we allocate to experimental platforms. You know, like, I wouldn't even call TikTok an experimental platform, but in the auto industry, TikTok has been mostly relegated to like the organic, not really like a paid strategy. But we always allocate some budget to like Porsche, for example. We'll do some Pinterest ads for Porsche because we've seen a high propensity of women actually love Porsches, and there's a lot of women on Pinterest. So we've done a little bit of allocation there, but every brand is slightly different. But I would say the majority of our plans are relegated to those bread and butter platforms, and then we do a little bit of experimentation.
So how does the relationship work between you and the dealerships? Would a dealership, you know, allocate X amount of budget, and then it's a hands-off kind of experience for them in terms of you managing not only their marketing but other components of the operation, or what does the relationship look like?
So the way we have it set up right now is we are the digital marketing agency for the dealers. And they can rely on us for our expertise if they want.
Is it opt-in?
Yeah. It's more of an opt-in, like, hey, I was thinking about buying this billboard, or I want to sponsor this rock concert. Or, you know, they don't have to run it by us, but as our relationship kind of deepens and they trust my expertise more and more, they'll start to ask my opinion on that stuff. But ultimately, we manage mostly just the digital footprint.
When I think about companies, and I'm always asking, what problems do you solve for who, and why do you think that you're the best suited to solve those problems? So can you describe it in terms of the dealerships? What are at the end of the day, the boiled down big problems you solve for them, and why are you guys best suited?
I think the biggest problem I am faced with when it comes to the dealership's marketing is their costs have gone up. Hey, my cost per vehicle sold is too high. What's going on? And then that's when my expertise comes in, and I dissect their entire marketing spend, and then, you know, we have an opportunity now to make a marketing calendar and a forecast and a budget. And most of the time we have that all budgeted away for digital. But the dealers kind of tend to go a little bit on their own. Because
their nephew told them to do.
Or someone came in, knocked on the door and said, hey, I've got this cool thing you should try. And let's do it, you know. So we try to reel that in a little bit. But ultimately, I love the entrepreneurial spirit that the dealers have, and the entrepreneurial spirit that Auto Canada allows them to have. But the fact that we have a great support service centrally located at home office, you know, we're there to help them essentially.
That's awesome.
Most of the time it's related to like spend is going out of control.
As it relates to team, so, you know, people on your team, some of which you alluded to, based on your experience, either in this job or in jobs in the past, what has become sort of your playbook in terms of empowerment, motivation, support? What's your role, and you know, what does your playbook look like on that topic?
You know, I tend to try to focus on a few different pillars, and the first one for me is I really like to be seen as someone who is getting my hands dirty and working in the accounts, working on the strategies, working with everybody rather than working like above everybody.
Right.
And I think that has helped bring my team closer together because, you know, they see me as someone who's boots on the ground just as much as they are.
Yeah.
And they see how hard I work, so it kind of maybe motivates them to work just as hard. And there's definitely never an assumption that, oh, Justin's just doing nothing, you know,
Right.
and he's just in his office doing nothing. And I think that part of that is why people like working under me,
Right.
because I work with them.
Right.
The other thing is, you know, when I came into Auto Canada, we had a rough idea of what a career plan looked like for our marketing folks. But now that I've kind of been able to work in multiple different agencies, and I've seen the different areas where a graphic designer can go or where a media buyer can go in actual practical life, I'm able to kind of give that advice to someone who's, you know, a senior graphic designer and looking for the next step. Well, have you thought of being a creative director? And maybe they never even thought about that.
That's amazing.
So I think career pathing is really important for digital marketing people or creative people.
After dozens of episodes I've had so far, and nobody has brought up the topic of career pathwaying as one of the things you do to lift your people up and to be a part of their. It's such an awesome thing.
I try to do, you know, it gets away from me sometimes, but I try to do a quarterly one-on-one with everyone on my team. I have 10 people on my team. And it's interesting to see the different motivations. Like some people on our first ever one-on-one, and I'm not singling anyone out, but they're like, you know, I'm not particularly ambitious and like, I'm just happy to have this job.
Yeah.
And then after several one-on-ones, you start to find out like, actually, like they really do have aspirations to become a marketing manager or a marketing director one day. And so now it's all about finding the path for them. Maybe it's courses, maybe it's leadership training, you know, something like that. And it's just interesting when you first meet someone that they themselves don't really always know what their ambitions are, but through continuous one-on-one process, you can actually get that out of them and nurture that. And I think that that's kind of my special tactic to get my team members motivated and to understand them also a little bit better and guide them on projects that are probably better suited for the skills that they want to develop.
Yeah. I want to stick on this topic for a little bit just because it's the first time we talked. I've talked about it with a guest. And because I just think it's so awesome, you know, our jobs as marketing leaders or as leaders in any capacity, in this case, you know, at work, but outside of that is to support and grow the whole person, right? Not just like the work and the deliverable part of that person. And even if that means co-building a path for them that ultimately leads them out of the organization, right? And the value and the utility that you give and provide to your team by doing that is irreplaceable, because a paycheck is one thing, but growth in their life and you being a cog or facilitator of that, I mean, that's amazing. And I don't know if many marketing leaders embrace that as part of their responsibility. Why has that become a natural superpower for you?
I've been very lucky to have a few key mentors. I hesitate to say mentors because it probably wasn't set up that way,
right?
But it ended up being that way. One of them was a particularly challenging experience, but in the end, I became much stronger and much more educated through that experience. But the thing for me was that if my boss or my direct report showed a genuine interest in my future career, and actually there was multiple occasions where it looked like that career was outside of the company that I was working for.
Right.
And I was hesitant to explain that. And the person was like, look, I don't care where you end up. Like, I'm personally invested in you. And so I want to help you get the skills and help you grow into whatever position you need to go into, whether it's with the company or not. Obviously, we would love to have you stay with us, and that kind of genuine approach really made me realize that, you know, you should be able to get the most out of any of your people for as long as they want to stay with you.
Yeah.
The moment they decide that they no longer want to work at that company, it's probably a good thing if it's not because they hate working there,
Right.
but they found something better.
Yeah.
And so I've always tried to kind of take that page out of my previous mentors' books and say, no matter who works for me, it doesn't matter where they want to move on to. I need to make sure that I'm fulfilling them enough and giving them enough skills that when they are ready to move on, they've left the position in a better place than when they came.
That's awesome. Yeah, I hope any marketing leaders listening to this, if you're not doing this already, many of you probably are, but if you're not, weave it in, because I'd imagine, what is this approach? What have you seen this approach result in terms of performance of the actual job at the current company?
Well, it's a bit challenging. I'm a new leader, so I've been doing this for about a year.
Yeah.
And initially, I found myself trying really hard to not make any promises that I couldn't keep.
Right.
And in the end, you try to nurture someone down a pathway that maybe doesn't exist. So that can be a bit of a challenging scenario. But I would say 95% of the time, there's a higher degree of fulfillment, a sense of purpose and direction. And maybe we can create that position down the line, and maybe we can't, but at least that person is heading towards something that they're feeling like very purposeful about.
Oh, that's great.
But it definitely gets a little bit tricky, especially if you're trying to create a role for someone that doesn't exist, or it may never exist. So what I've personally learned is it's better to kind of hold back a little bit in promising a specific pathway, and more just trying to guide that person along something that they've shown interest in.
Outside of what we just talked about, are there one or two, I don't want to embarrass you or put you on the spot, but are there one or two things that you consider to be superpowers of yours that you have learned or acquired over time that you bring to the job every day? What are Justin's superpowers?
Yeah. I think it's because I've been in sales for the good part of my initial career, that I have a unique ability to present complicated topics to almost anybody. And based on who I'm speaking to, I can be as much or as little detailed as I need to be to convey the message. So I think that's been my superpower.
That's awesome.
So like dealing with executives, for example.
Okay.
I always try to frame the conversation, how much detail do you need? And it's usually like, well, how much does this decision cost? And then, so if it's a couple $1,000, then no detail is better.
Right.
But if it's, $100,000 decision, you may want to give a little more detail. And then if you're talking to a digital media buyer, I've done the clicking in the ad campaign, so I know how to speak their language. And I've had the opportunity to work alongside some amazing creative directors. So when I work with a graphic designer, I know exactly how to kind of pitch the idea, the concept, instead of just saying, make it pop,
Yeah.
That's the classic term.
Yeah. Just that, but better.
Yeah. I like that, but make it pop.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So I think, my ability to just kind of communicate well, I think
I think I heard two things there. It's taking complex concepts and applying clarity to them, but also really being intentional on who is the person you're talking to, and before you speak or present a concept or a topic, how do they want to hear it? How are they best set up to hear it? Are they analytical? Are they big picture? Are they, you know what I mean? And if we can take a beat, as leaders, and just think about that and intend and be intentional about it, I think that's a huge superpower.
Yeah, I think it's important to always pause yourself before you're entering a conversation. One really cool thing we've done at Auto Canada, and I recommend this for any organization, we did a company-wide personality assessment.
Okay.
And then you can go on this portal online and pull up the person you're about to send an email to or have a meeting with. And it'll give you tips on, like, based on your personality and their personality, here's how you should approach this person, or try using words like this.
That's
What
was the test?
It's called SDI.
Okay.
It's more of like a enterprise level personality assessment. It's not like a Myers-Briggs or like a...
Yeah, we do. We're a Clifton strengths organization. Same thing. Like I have my team at a glance cheat sheet in terms of their top 5 strengths, and being intentional about, okay, this person is deliberative as one of their top. Okay, well that means we're going to be seeking a decision here. So that's interesting.
Yeah, well, I've done it before at other companies. The thing that it missed out on was the tips, where like we had a better sense of who we were working with, and it was great. But this particular platform, and it's called, I don't know the acronym stand for, it's SDI, but you can pull down a drop down and say, I'm about to send an email to this person. And then it'll say, try starting with, for example, if you're talking to someone who's people oriented, it'll say, start with, it would help the team if you did this, instead of saying, because these type of people are not as interested in their own performance. They're actually more interested in helping other people perform. So like, it would be helpful to X if you did this. And so I started doing that, and it's not like a hack or anything, but it works particularly well, I would say. Do
you start to learn things about your team as they work with you longer that you don't even need the drop down anymore? Is that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I still, like, if I'm acting a little bit unconsciously, you know, I tend to revert to my my result oriented nature, which is like, I need this done now. And sometimes I prioritize that over being overly delicate. Especially if there's a deadline or a major amount of money attached to the decision. But I think that's probably one of my flaws, is I'm maybe a little bit of a...
Well, leading into that, like after the superpowers, what would you consider to be a big weakness that you actively seek support from with team members or colleagues, and that you're aware of?
Yeah, like I'm overtly result focused. For example, I was in a compensation negotiation with a high executive person in the company on behalf of someone else, and I kind of led with what I wanted to achieve, and he was like, whoa, let's talk about this. Like, let's dance around this a little bit, And so, because we've had conversations in the past where he was telling me lead with the conclusion. And that's one thing I've learned with dealing with executives, is lead with the conclusion. But in some scenarios, it's important to go through the motions and
put context around it.
I'm still learning how to approach. As much as I say, like, I'm good at handling my approach, there's obviously areas to improve. So well, you highlighted there too that, like, I mean, put another way, what you just explained could be easily defined as a strength, as a superpower, but us understanding that our superpowers, there's a basement version of our superpowers, and and being aware of that. What were you going to say? Sorry. Yeah, I think I'm also, like, one thing that I hesitated about actually doing this podcast is I've been told I'm an oversharer. So
that's the power of editing.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, a little bit of reserve and patience is something that I've tried to learn as well. Yeah. Well, you can wave your freak flag here, because we can edit it out. Perfect. You talk about being results oriented and very lead with the conclusion, output driven. Right now, for your team, what would you be willing to share about biggest challenges or problem areas that you guys have to rally around together to get this? Maybe you haven't figured it out yet, but you're chipping away at it, or maybe you just recently figured it out. What's a big pitfall for the group right now as it relates to delivery of your promise to your dealer customer base? Yeah. It feels like an ongoing problem that I've tried a number of different ways to solve. I think it's more of a symptom of the auto industry. There's this monthly cyclical purging and recreation of campaigns. And it feels like because every month the manufacturers release new incentives. So you'll have a lower interest rate on a specific model, or a percentage rebate, or whatever it is. It happens every single month. And then so we have a tendency to kind of throw everything away that we just did last month and then start everything new again based on all the new incentives that came out for every single brand. And I think that because of this high pace, every month new cycle of creative and strategy, we don't take enough time to look at what was effective and how can we start reusing some of those concepts. And also the team gets this kind of ebb and flow of really high pace turnaround, and then mid-month it feels like there's maybe a little bit less work to do. So my biggest challenge has been trying to find a way to kind of streamline the workload and even it out throughout the weeks and the months.
Right.
And then also take more time to reflect on the strategies that were more successful than others. And maybe that's getting away from this manufacturer's monthly offers and coming up with our own monthly or our own quarterly strategies for the dealerships.
But right? I gotta imagine that would be tough too, because as a dealer, when the incentive comes down from high, it's very it's probably packaged and positioned and communicated pretty good in terms of being a favor to them. So it's like any deviation from that is like, it's a sell.
Yeah. And there's usually incentives for the dealer to sell those models in that month. And, it's a wide topic that I feel like we could talk about a long time. As much as we're supporting a business, part of our auto group, they're actually a franchise of the manufacturer.
Right.
And so like the manufacturer, VW, Mercedes, how much did they spend on their brand?
Right.
So like, who are we to be so decisive that we're actually better at creating a dealership's brand than the manufacturer is? And in some cases that might be true, but something about just kind of evening out the workload for our teams has been particularly challenging in the lens of the auto industry, I find.
I feel like I've been exposed to one of your aforementioned superpowers, taking complex topics and simplifying them. I very clearly understand what that problem is, but with no prior exposure to the way it works. You bring up a good topic there, which is, part of our job is to make people's work lives as easy and predictable and smooth as possible. And so evening out workload and being concerned with things like capacity and those types of things, ebbs and flows of capacity. So within the reality or the constraint that you described, initiated by the manufacturer, what are some of the things you have been able to successfully do in working within that reality, but creating a sense of predictability or smoothness to the team's capacity and workload?
Well, the first thing is that I've relegated some tasks to mid-month cadence, like content creation, analytics, audits. It's funny that our websites, for some reason, the lead buttons and things just keep breaking. So, I've decided that mid-month we're going to click through all of our pages. We're going to create content. We're going to do stuff that's not directly attached to like a cyclical monthly revenue model, and it's more of long-term projects.
Right.
And then trying to get a little bit of a head start on maybe instead of the first day of every month working on all these new promos and everything, we stagger it so each brand has its own day within the first 3-4 days of the month.
Right.
We've kind of experimented with that. And then, the inventory has been particularly challenging over the last couple of years. So we've decided to focus on the promos where we had inventory related to those promos.
Right.
And then we would just pump out the rest afterwards.
Right.
Just to kind of give us a little bit of a prioritized focus.
Right. Is there anything that you have tried to apply from an evergreen standpoint that would run congruently to these month in, month out incentive based campaigns?
Yeah. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah, we've leveraged heavily dynamic advertising.
Okay.
So inventory-based
Right.
feeds to Merchant Center and catalog for Meta. And those are kind of evergreen campaigns that are constantly running. And rather than worrying about the ads coming off and on, we just keep them running all the time.
Right.
And we maybe replace the first tile creative,
Right.
or we replace the first image in the carousel. When
But
the
a change
offers
to
are
the
ready.
inventory will reflect change to the okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those have been very successful actually in the
Yeah.
auto industry there. Dynamic catalog, inventory-based advertising is
No, it makes total sense.
really, really good.
Yeah. Sometimes, not always, marketing leader's job is to elevate the position of marketing at the so to speak table, to facilitate a holistic understanding and participation across the organization with marketing. What's been your approach to getting buy-in, making people believe, understand that aren't part of the regular cadence of your team?
Mm-hmm. Excitement.
Okay.
I think that we have these long meetings with all the different departments speaking, what's going on. Here's the updates. Here's the numbers. My belief is that the marketing segment of the discussion should be the most exciting part of the discussion. So I try to bring a lot of energy, and I usually try to stand. I'll have some visuals. I'll show some really exciting graphs where numbers are going up. You could kind of always marketing's like that. You can kind of pinpoint on some specific KPIs where you've seen gains.
Yeah.
Ultimately, because of the breadth of the topic, it's really, really hard to engage with a group of people who may or may not know much about marketing and really make them see the value in any particular strategy. Because I've had so much experience, particularly in the automotive industry, I really believe in the tactics that I deploy, but I think excitement is what gets people on board more than anything else.
Especially if that excitement is paired with evidence that what you're doing is supporting the business case.
Yeah.
Right? Which, you being results oriented, I imagine it is. Talking about the goalposts, how do you guys, what does a scoreboard look like for you in terms of the main things you track to demonstrate we are in alignment with the business case fulfillment, not just channel specific CPM and reach and that kind of thing? What are your goalposts that keep everyone?
Yeah, this is kind of morphed over the last year. When I first joined the company's direction was heavily lead focused.
Okay.
And then as we've gone into now the automotive industry changing overall, and we've seen kind of a down cycle in total amount of leads coming in, our focus has changed now to leads in the framework of a close rate.
Okay.
So we used to have, without speaking about too many specifics, our lead volume was high and our close rate was fairly low.
Okay.
And then now our lead volume is medium and our close rate has gone up. So a higher focus on quality leads, and a less focus on just sheer volume. And I think when you talk about your last question about how does marketing influence operations, and when you look at a dealership that has, say, 25 salespeople, do you think that they're going to be able to handle 3,000 leads? But if you talk about a lead per person, probably more in the 70 to 80 leads per person range.
Right.
If you start targeting that, despite quality and marketing mix, forget all those other variables. If you just focused on a volume of leads per salesperson, the close rate just naturally increases because they can nurture customers a lot better.
That makes sense. So that's a ratio that you guys monitor closely and use it to determine.
We call our human resource, we call them horsepower.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
we try to focus on a total volume of leads, the quality of leads in terms of close rate, as well as its relationship to the volume of salespeople in the store. That's
awesome. What about so when you say leads, obviously you're talking about, car buyers for that specific dealer, for that customer or client of yours. But do you guys, do you have any efforts placed or focus on generating new dealership leads to become Auto Canada clients, or is that not how it works?
I think that's more of word of mouth thing. I know there's a lot of brokers that focus their efforts on helping dealerships who want to sell to a group.
Right. What's
know,
their alternative as dealership? Like some local guy or firm, or something more established in economies of scope, economies of scale?
Yeah. In the dealer world, every dealership is part of what's called a performance group.
Okay.
Whether they're in an actual larger automotive group or not, every single dealer is part of a 20 group. Like they'll have 20 other dealership friends, and they meet up every once in a while, and they talk about what's working and what's not.
Different brands,
different regions, and typically they're not always related.
Okay.
And so the dealership network is actually very tightly knit, and general managers tend to go from store to store, and
there's car trading, inventory trading.
Everybody knows everybody, and if a store is for sale, like it's very unlikely that any of the groups will not know about it.
Okay.
So I don't think we spend any particular amount of energy trying to attract dealerships to join Auto Canada.
Right.
Nor do we really advertise Auto Canada as a group.
Right.
Like we really focus on promoting the identity of the stores individually.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Actually, before my next question, a funny story about, so outside of this podcast, the agency that myself and my partner founded, how it started was we won a case study. Like it was a project that was issued to our MBA cohort by the Jim Pattison Auto Group in Vancouver. Yeah. And they were launching a brand new car concept, the Scion, into Canada.
Oh yeah, I remember
through
that.
Toyota.
Yeah.
It wasn't great, but
the FRS was pretty sweet though.
They were sweet cars,
yeah.
and it was all about self-expression and whatever. I mean, that's great, but that's what it was about.
Yeah.
And so there was 5 groups in our MBA cohort that raised their hands to put together essentially a social media strategy back in 2011. So it was early days of using this as a medium or a mix within your mix. And so my group won, and part of the award or whatever was to implement that plan for the Jim Pattison Auto Group for Toyota, and get a 6-month paid internship out of it. And at this point, myself and my partner know nothing about marketing or digital marketing or anything. We just kind of Googled it and figured it out and tried things. And, we're pretty successful with the launch of that. And then when that project wrapped, so my point is, I got an inside look at a lot of the things you're talking about. And it wasn't since then that I'd been exposed to these conversations. So it's bringing back all this nostalgia for me in terms of the way you mentioned that meeting, that boring meeting when everyone's talking about on this and that and this. We had to adopt that. This is the exciting part, So this is bringing back a lot of nostalgia for me.
Yeah, Jim Pattison's a really good group there.
Yeah.
Because they're not publicly traded, they have access to Toyota, which is pretty cool for them because Toyota is a great brand. But and then they have a lot of Volvos too, I think.
Yeah,
yeah.
But it's a very interesting industry and model, and marketing plays. It's so hard to market in that industry based on because you're subject to so many external factors that you can't control, right? Like inventory over the last couple of years, that must have been a pain. And so you got to really have a sharp sword in terms of not only understanding the discipline, but putting it through the lens of a very interesting market and industry.
I found that the automotive industry, in terms of marketing, is incredibly sensitive to policy change as well.
Right.
Because we have to target such hyper geographic locations, based on if you're in Calgary, there's 9 Nissan dealers in Calgary, and each dealer is only allowed to advertise in a specific zone. And if you know about Facebook ads, if you have a credit offer, well, you're only allowed to advertise within 15 miles of a radius. So we're constantly trying to find ways to circumvent these policy changes, and you do have to be pretty sharp to keep up with it.
Yeah. I want to change gears, pun intended. We got horsepower, we got gears, we got a couple more maybe. Change gears a little bit to this idea of within teams, whether it's sports teams or community group teams or obviously business teams, marketing teams. How do you manage the inevitable conflicts, disagreements, frustrations amongst team members, differences of opinion. What role do you play? Are you like, the invisible hand, or are you very involved? What's been your playbook on that?
Still learning that one. The most recent success I've had is tying collaboration to pay plan.
Right.
In the sense that, if you're looking to hit that next level, and if you look at our pay scales in the job that you have, part of that scale is influenced by collaborativeness. So, you gotta make amends. I have tried to deal with the conflict head on by being a mediator in a meeting with people who are in conflict. I don't think I'm skilled enough in that. I have been able to leverage our human resources department as well. Mm-hmm. So I think the topic of HR is, you can get a pretty mixed bag on that. I've worked in companies where it's kind of like HR's function is to support the management. Mm-hmm. And I've worked in companies where HR really, really wanted to be involved in handling conflict resolution and building up their people. I think probably AutoCanada is currently experiencing a really great HR culture. And so we have been able to leverage our HR team to help out with some of those conflicts. Part of my next mission is I want to get more leadership training, and I think conflict management is going to be part of that for sure.
Yeah.
For me, again, it's part of the personality assessment, but there's actually a part of how this person manages conflict, and typically people will either engage in conflict or they'll recoil.
Yeah.
Depending on the context of it.
Well, yeah, conflict and disagreement is a tricky one, because on one hand, you want to be thinking about how to support it and mitigate it. But on the other hand, it's after conflict or disagreement where the results happen. And so you have to go through those uncharted territories of disagree and commit and, healthy conflict to get to the real stuff. So it's like, on one hand, you want to nurture it, and on the other hand, you want to be supportive in the mitigation of it. So yeah. That's a tricky one. I was
thinking now of a scenario previously in another work environment where there was an assumption around the office that there was one person that just wasn't carrying their weight.
Right.
And they were there was synonymous with laziness and, being unproductive. And then it was actually recommended to that person that if they wanted to get more buy-in from their colleagues, they should find a way to communicate on the projects that they're working on. And this particular person wasn't very good at verbal communication with the team. They were a little bit shy. So we used a Slack to just basically once every 2 weeks post in Slack, in the group Slack, about, hey, I'm working on optimizing this strategy, and here's the things that I found, and here's the results that I've seen from this optimization. And over the course of 3-4 months of doing that every 2 weeks, people started changing their rhetoric about this person, and actually wow, they're really expertise in their field. And so sometimes it's just a perception change that can often remove conflict. And if somebody is maybe being attacked by others for a perceived issue that maybe is not even there, one way to get around that is to find a channel of communication to kind of fizzle that away.
And that's exactly another job for us as leaders, is to, if we can assume positive intent with everyone, which is a great trait to do, then it's getting innovative with channels or methods to bring that out. I think that's a great example.
Yeah, I like that you said there. You have to assume positive intent. Totally. You can't just assume that someone's coming to work every day and not doing anything.
No,
you can't.
No, and that'll show up pretty clearly. If you got a rotten heart, there's only so much you can do, right?
Yeah,
You have to assume the positive. So this isn't as applicable to your current role, but I don't know if in roles past you're on the agency side before, and then in non-agency side. One topic that I'm trying to drill down a lot on, of course, is client agency relationships. And what are some of the things that you can do as an internal leader to facilitate or nurture a great marriage? What are some things to be aware of, to stay away from, to double down on, to play your role in creating a great, effective partnership?
I think I'm going to use the lens of my current role because I found it incredibly fascinating now being somebody, being pitched to or embarking on the client side of a relationship with a vendor. And one thing I think is not done well enough is vendors or agencies don't spend enough time learning the structure, the organizational chart of the company they're about to try to work with. And I think that would alleviate a lot of redundant offerings that are sometimes put on the table. And it's like, well, you didn't actually know I have a whole team of graphic designers,
Right.
So just kind of understanding the structure of the company that you're trying to work with. I think that's really helpful.
That's also a first that I've heard.
It's a big first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but it's the first time somebody has
really?
brought that up but it's so obvious and it's so right, And it also puts you in a position to empathize with the person you're talking to, where it's like maybe frustrated that you're not getting a decision from them. But if you just took a look at the way the thing was structured, you can see clearly that the way decisions get made it's difficult for that person.
Like if you were looking at a prospect and you actually had a chance to review their organizational structure and you saw that they had a team of media buyers that had no direct report. And so you'd be like, well, who's ensuring that the GA4 migration is being done? And like, who's ensuring that, just the high level technology adoption, of these platforms that are always changing, like who's doing that? Oh, and then now there's maybe a plug for you or an agency to get in. Just more along that kind of structure thought. I found that the companies or the agencies or the vendors that we have the best relationship with, there's usually like a bi-weekly cadence to the service structure.
Right.
And they have like one champion on their side that manages all that, whether it's an account manager or a performance manager or something like that. I think that's kind of a no-brainer though.
Yeah.
But
No, that's really good. I want to leave you at this one, and I feel like I could talk to you like for hours about a lot of these things, but
Yeah, same.
Maybe we'll do a part 2. We will do a part 2.
Cool. All right.
Get Carly involved.
Yes.
Shake it up a little.
Yeah,
Maybe some cocktails.
Oh, you had me at cocktails.
It sounds like because you mentioned you're a year into this leadership role, and you referenced things like some more leadership training. What are you doing now or excited about doing in the future to keep your sword sharp, so to speak, as a marketing professional and marketing leader? I'm
probably going to ask you more about this offline, but
Sure.
I'm interested in doing an MBA.
Yeah.
I'm MBA in marketing, but
3 expensive letters.
I know there's quite a bit of there's some leadership opportunities within an MBA.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know about Calgary, but in Edmonton, there's a leadership summit. It's like the Dale Carnegie leadership training. So I'd like to take on maybe not that one specifically, but some courses, group style environment courses where I get to meet other people who are trying to sharpen their leadership skills. I've also reached out to a few of the execs, in our own company to ask them their opinions about stuff, and a few of them have offered up quite a bit of insight, and I'm learning that way as well.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really good way. That's one of the pure purposes of this show is to sharpen my sword, but sharpen the sword or be a source of sword sharpening. I'm going to get off that for people listening. So being a contributor is just as impactful as being a receiver of that. So that's why I really appreciate you coming in and coming down, and we won't talk Oilers stuff today, but
I'm a Flames fan anyway. So.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'm like my hometown is Calgary.
Okay. All right. That's right.
Yeah. I think you're right though. Like even just having a conversation with you, sometimes I don't think that I spend enough time actually thinking about my own leadership strategies and vocalizing it. And maybe that's a way to reaffirm my actual beliefs.
I think so.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Justin. I've learned a lot, and this was a fun convo.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Caleb. Appreciate it.